Hello, everyone. I'm Major Garrett in Washington. Welcome to The Takeout. We have a theme tonight, as you might have noticed, and I'm going to try to get us there with some song lyrics. I know what I'm needing, and I don't want to waste more time. I'm in a New York state of mind. Tonight, this show is in a New York state of mind, and for good reason. Zohran Mamdani appears poised at age 34 to become mayor of New York City. The Democratic Socialists' expected victory would deepen divisions within the Democratic Party about what it stands for and why. That's a story by itself. But there's another reason we are in a New York state of mind. Think about this. 6 political figures animating life in America today grew up in New York, made their money, cut their political teeth within 25 miles of one another. Let me list them. President Trump, Jamaica, Queens. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, Midwood, Brooklyn. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, downtown Brooklyn. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Parkchester, the Bronx. And the 2 main rivals for New York City mayor, Andrew Cuomo, Jamaica, Queens. Mamdani, born in Uganda, moved with his parents at age 7 to Morningside Heights on the Upper West Side. Incidentally, the Trumps and Cuomos have known each other for decades. Trump's father, Fred, was a customer at Andrew's grandfather's grocery store in Queens. And when young Andrew Cuomo was an up-and-coming lawyer, one of his firm's clients was Donald Trump, the developer. Trump has branded Mamdani a communist, something Mamdani, a socialist, denies. On 60 Minutes, the president ended weeks of evasiveness and offered this semi-endorsement of Cuomo.
I'm not a fan of Cuomo one way or the other, but if it's going to be between a bad Democrat and a communist, I'm going to pick the bad Democrat all the time, to be honest with you.
Back to Billy Joel's hit, New York State of Mind. Joel wrote it in 1975 as a sort of love song to New York after returning there after spending several years of disillusionment in Hollywood. Now, there wasn't much to love in New York in 1975. It faced bankruptcy and financial ruin, the product of profligate spending, excessive hiring, and city residents fleeing high crime for the suburbs. Mamdani's campaign has been fueled by a so-called youthquake. Young New Yorkers also disillusioned by something else, high costs, and captivated by promises of free buses, free daycare, and rent freezes. They have no memory, individually or collectively, of New York's hard times and what led to them in the mid-1970s. Their New York state of mind is now. And so we begin a full show on that great city, its future, democratic socialism, and what it might mean for politics nationwide. Ed O'Keefe starts us off at the CBS Broadcast Center in the heart of New York City with where the race stands. Ed, always great to see you.
Major, good to see you. And, you know, last week there was a clip that surfaced online of Mamdani being asked by someone to identify certain pieces of music. He couldn't identify one from a Billy Joel song, which may just tell us more than anything that generationally, at least, Mamdani, not necessarily tied to those hits of the past, very much focused here on the present. This is his to lose. And in the last 24 hours, this local race over local concerns has very much become nationalized by the president's comments to 60 Minutes. The Mamdani campaign making hay of the fact that the president essentially endorsed the former governor, who is a Democrat now running as an independent because he lost the primary to Mamdani. And it looks like the former governor was on a radio show here in the city today and was being asked about that apparent endorsement when he hung up on the radio hosts, not wanting to answer any questions about that. So Cuomo realizes that in a city where the current president, even if he is a New Yorker by birth, is not very popular, having his support may be the nail in his coffin. But we've also seen something major that I think those of us who cover politics nationally and rarely get to do it here on the streets of New York see usually in early primary or caucus states, and that is an army of people knocking on hundreds of thousands of doors across the boroughs of this city to turn out supporters for Mamdani. Those that do that kind of precinct-level work in those states for presidential primaries are going to come look at what Mamdani has done here, inspiring multi-generations of people who are backing his bid and realizing that he needs all the help he can get. This afternoon, we were up just a few blocks from here on the Upper West Side talking to a handful of 20-somethings and 70-somethings who are working with him to try to make this happen, volunteers. And there was a kid who came over from North Brooklyn saying, my neighborhood's locked up, but I know he needs support over here in Manhattan, so I'm going to spend the afternoon knocking on doors. You don't see that happening for Andrew Cuomo.
That's going to be my next question, Ed. Is there any kind of either mild or concerted get out the vote effort for Andrew Cuomo that in any way, shape, or form resembles what you're seeing manifest for Mamdani?
No, not on the streets, but certainly on the airwaves. Most of the ad buys over the weekend during football games were for Cuomo or the PACs who love him, and essentially raising the concerns that the former governor's raised about the assemblyman this entire time. He's too young and inexperienced. If you find yourself in danger on the subway in the coming years under Mayor Mamdani, the cops may not be there to help you. You know, basic quality of life concerns and concerns that Mamdani himself isn't experienced enough to do it. That is why you see the Mamdani campaign continue to focus on, and today at least, in essence, belittle Cuomo because he's getting Trump's support. The argument that Mamdani's made the whole time is that Mayor Adams, who dropped out of the race, and Cuomo would be far too aligned with the president at the potential detriment to New York City. They turn around and say because he's so disliked by the president, it could put the city at a disadvantage. And even Saturday Night Live over the weekend made the prescient point that no matter who becomes mayor, their biggest challenge is likely the guy that lives in the White House, and they're going to have to figure out a way to work with him. So we'll see here. The big goal now, or the thing to watch, is if it is indeed Mamdani's to win, can he get over 50%? In the last few years, in two-way races, essentially, you've seen your mayors elected here in the 60s, even low 70s, of support against a Republican. In a three-way race that involves the Republican Curtis Sliwa, and with potential support for Cuomo, maybe have grown just a few points in the last few weeks because Mayor Adams dropped out. If they can hold Mamdani below 50%, his opponents will be able to say, you wonder if this guy has a wide mandate to lead the city. We'll see.
Is it a victory, and is it one with a mandate? A question we will try to answer tomorrow night, and Ed O'Keefe will be with us to do just that. Ed O'Keefe, thanks so much.
Take care.